for what to poop where no will be a D, assembly suffer when no a ya a beer, assembly punosanso, and a yet shayna and a yiska coco, Obekaya from last week in summer a dark power one I say. And then I'm so social media no a nearby Serwaa I'm here on a Mr. Henry Freight or more bedroom at Topasaga video as secretary to social media and so no Anna from last week dear he nekra make us say that's so trendy it was social media and so in some way about social media and so celebrities I would be nana about one thing about become feeling towards a nyema Echagu it was social media and so if I did in Serwaa I'm here and Mr. Henry Freight and now I worry a young munyam for bad de la ele Berla Mundi and some way trendy with social media and snankophobia targeting this say say Mr. Henry Freight say Sebio one Serwaa I'm here if you those video poppy na celebrities videos poppy there and kamia ko say ni aba Berla Mundi an kanena wodi njuma GhOne TV no wodi njuma media Jeremy Choma TV 3 station so no ono so de kamia ko say bia Henry Freight de na chi aka fom tebe aka Ghana for enhwehwem wey and then so our Berla Mundi about one thing now we're making some biggest expose for the fake life from one media personalities the title any man living any Sebio kwaya omofaso enyo musika the title any no Berla Mundi one some no trend with social media and so Ghana for be na pese omubo ni din and Sebia waka and say wa bra papa e we GhOne abonten so GhOne TV so bra ye nua ba na mo ase wa here to tankrom na no motete no hye na yakayaka de ma mpempi no kra no before so beba TV station so and also beba ama Ghana for hu no na se bi wasun wakọ enema bebrebe mu ense bebre na ne no akasa ka kwan ofa so enya ni sky chem se advert ne ambassadorial position wokuta de ye advert ne manema ema nkrofo ne no anenam so ema sabio otiminya ni sky tin sama Ghana for kan esan se wa am here ni video ne na papa social media ne so no eno nche so no Berla Mundi sabio de ni toto yes ne vagina no ebo akopeska akope hunya de fe cars ne nyema ne no nkrofo bi wo social media so ne nsan do na Berla Mundi ababonten ababeka concerning Serwaa I'm here any Henry Freight or video secretary to social media and
avoid would rather you stay there and just plateau. I mean they didn't say plateau but they just said we also couldn't find anybody who could do that job so you might as well stay there. But I had interviewed everybody that mattered in the music industry, in the arts industry, and I was tired because a month later the same person would come and I have to now think of what other question to ask because I was recycling them over and over. So I told myself I was done with this and I needed a show that would challenge me. And I was done talking about music only and what are you doing, what's your album about. I just wanted something a bit more challenging. My bosses said no. I had to fight. I had to cry. There were guests who would walk into the building and they'll find me crying. And they're thinking, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, my bosses don't want me to start my new show. And it was all very upset because they just didn't understand the backstory of it. Now, eventually, I had people who helped me and I started that show. A year into that show, I'm told, it's time to move again. And I'm telling God, but you just gave me this idea. So why do I have to move? And he says, well, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to move. Because I made you start this show for a reason. And that was supposed to prepare you for the next journey. I still didn't understand. So TV3 gets in touch with me. The first time, I want to move. I tell them, okay, I'll come. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, you people, you're jokers. I'm not moving. So I accept, I sign a contract and everything. It's time for me to move. And then I have to tell them the bitter truth. I'm sorry, but I cannot make it. And it pissed everybody off, I'm sure, at TV3. They were very disappointed because they were just about ready to, put out the PR and say, so Berla is joining us. And this is me being so afraid to move. And so I got stuck in that space. For another 6 months, I was there. Now, this move came in March. So if my calculation is right, the final move I made was in September. So maybe about 5-6 months. Now, while I was there, things took a turn because I was disobedient. I knew I had to go, but I wasn't going. So God said, if that's the case, thank you. If that's the case, then I'm going to make it even more difficult for you. So now all the negative things that had to happen would happen. The backbiting started. There were a lot of accusations here and there. There were people who were treating me like I didn't matter. And I just didn't understand what it meant. But it was just God making the space uncomfortable for me. So eventually, I just told my manager that, you know what, let's see if there's still an opportunity at TV3. So we started having that conversation. They said, well, there is an opportunity still. We left that slot open for you. However, you need to assure us you're coming, because we're not going to put together all the materials, getting ready to announce, and you won't come again. And I said, oh, I'm very sure I'm going, because at that time I had it. I just couldn't take it anymore. I didn't see myself growing at that point. I was more depressed so I'd come to my show. If my show started at 3 o'clock, I'd get to work at 2:45. That's how badly I didn't want to be in that space. So 2:45, I'm there, and my boss is looking at me like, why are you coming this late? I'm like, oh, sorry, boss, I was doing something. But really, I'd wake up in the morning, and there was really no drive for me to want to be in that space. So I come at 2:45, my show ends, it's an hour, so it ends at 5, and I'm out. And that was consistent for a while. So I knew it was time. Luckily for me, there was an opportunity and I had to move. Now, before that, I needed to ask myself, what really is your goal? Because it's not enough to say, I'm not comfortable here, so I just want to move. Sometimes you don't have a plan. Sometimes God has a plan for you.
Social media so adwama bon bedde dia ba so mo e wo efidikese so ha e fresh gossip GH medican aka cho se news updates papa nkan so da eno ane so no so be so mo e wo efidikese so ye foforo na mo subscribe page ma me ameso da so subscribe fresh gossip GH page e de ama me subscribe na wo share no na wo review comment or comment section no ase e de ama me se na be so na ka chire metena se na se me bia menu mu kinkan se bia betimi akenkan ama foforo mo so omonsa enkan no so setimi akebno mahu de eko ne dia eba edino eyaso na ka chire adwakro mu na metena mu edo su ko nsem bia eko so mani edi Serwaa am here oni ye nua ya de nyina Mr. Henry Fritz nsema trend on social media so de better from bia me fa de abesom mu e wo fidikesi so